In the next few minutes, I will show you how to identify the exact moment your soul signals that staying in a place is no longer an act of love, but an exile from yourself, so you can reclaim the peace that others' storms have stolen. Every day you ignore this silent call for boundaries, a piece of your life force fades away, making the departure heavier and the return home feel further out of reach. I speak as someone who has crossed the desert of abandonment and learned, in the silence of my own pain, that true spirituality begins when we stop breaking ourselves to fit into the chaos of those who do not wish to be healed. You may believe that leaving is giving up, or that your patience is proof of spiritual evolution, but the truth is that the universe does not require you to nullify yourself to prove you know how to love. By the end of this encounter, you will learn to observe, without judgment, who has truly been hindering your blossoming. Perhaps right now you feel an anguish you cannot name, a weariness that sleep cannot cure. Know that your pain is seen and validated here. It is not a mistake, but a portal to your awakening of consciousness. There is a hidden pain many of us carry, the belief that leaving is a spiritual failure. However, true wisdom teaches us that, sometimes, the exit is the only altar of healing available. Carl Jung used to say that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. When you insist on inhabiting a space where your presence is ignored, you are, in fact, running away from yourself. This paradox is profound. The farewell, though it may tear your chest open at first, can be your first meditative state of real presence. It is in the silence of walking away that you finally stop hearing the noise of the other to listen to the whisper of your own soul. Imagine the sea in its infinite wisdom. It returns to the sand everything that is heavy and does not belong to its nature, simply to protect what lives in its depths. Detachment is not coldness. It is the survival instinct of your essential being. But for this sea to return what weighs it down, we must first recognize the nature of the place where we have anchored our hearts. Sometimes, what we call a refuge is actually the center of a whirlwind that disorients us. Often, we seek safety in places that only feed our internal chaos. It is the unconscious pattern of the soul seeking the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. Here, the danger of the spiritualized ego arises, that voice that justifies suffering in the name of a false patience or a misunderstood unconditional love. True love never asks for your fragmentation. If you are diminishing yourself, silencing yourself, or hiding yourself to fit into a relationship, you are not in a safe harbor. You are in the eye of a storm. As Stoicism taught, emotional clarity requires us to identify what belongs to us and what is a projection of the other. Observe the subtle signs, the exhaustion after a meeting, the fear of being yourself, the feeling that your vital energy is being drained. Identifying this is not judging the other, but honoring the life pulsing within you. In this labyrinth of projections, it is common to confuse the weight that pins us to the bottom with the hand that holds us at the surface. One must silence the fear to realize when what we call support has silently become an imprisonment. Often, we confuse the weight of an anchor with the safety of a harbor. It takes a silent wisdom to discern when the affection we receive is fertile ground for our growth, or a net that prevents us from flying. Self-respect is not an act of selfishness, but the ethical foundation for any authentic spiritual awakening. There are people who, under the mantle of care, end up sinking us into their own insecurities and shadows. Calling this love is a deception of the ego that keeps us imprisoned. Maturity in human relations, as Stoicism taught, demands a clear and responsible spirituality, one that recognizes that real support liberates, while emotional imprisonment intoxicates our living soul. When this perception awakens, the need for a sacred space is born. Not a space of isolation, but a boundary that protects your inner flame, transforming the act of withdrawing into a ritual of dignity and presence. Saying no to what hurts us is, in truth, saying a sacred yes to the life pulsing within us. We need to transform the act of leaving into a ritual of reconnection with our essential being. Leaving a situation that does not honor us is not an act of revenge or anger, but a movement of presence and deep self-perception. As Krishnamurti taught, freedom begins when we understand our conditioning. By establishing a boundary, you stop being an exile in another's desire to become the guardian of your own internal temple. It is the encounter with your dignity at the exact moment you decide that your peace is worth more than the illusion of a forced harmony. By raising this altar of self-respect, you may feel the echo of an immediate void. But make no mistake, this space is not absence. It is the vastness necessary for your true self, at last, to have room to expand. The void left by those who did not know how to honor us is not an absence of value, but a sacred space for the blossoming of your own soul. Frequently, the ego seeks external validation like a child who fears the dark, but contemplative spirituality invites us to transcend this need. This fertile void is the womb of the invisible, where your inner completeness begins to be gestated without the interference of outside noise. Transforming the pain of rejection into an invitation to inhabit your essence is the greatest alchemy a human being can perform. You are not losing anything. You are, finally, letting go of an invisible knot that bound your heart to the expectations of those who could never truly see you. Inhabiting this vastness requires a courage the ego does not know, the courage to accept that certain flowers must fall for the tree to continue to grow. The farewell ceases to be an end and becomes the necessary pruning that precedes the flowering of the soul. Often, we remain in suffering because of an illusion that pain is a reason to stay, as if sacrifice were a currency for a miracle that never comes. The ego fears the silence that follows a breakup, but the soul knows that this silence is not absence. It is presence without noise. While the ego is in a hurry to find new answers, the soul has its own rhythm of healing. As the master of presence, Eckhart Tolle, taught, liberation arises when we stop fighting against what we feel. Accepting that a cycle has ended is like the necessary pruning of a tree. It hurts at the cut, but it is what allows the tree of consciousness to continue growing toward the sacred, free from what has already dried up. The courage to not remain in pain is the first step toward your inner transformation. And, by embracing this natural rhythm of life, you realize that every step taken away from what hurts you was, in fact, a step taken inward. The long exile ends here, in the definitive encounter with your own essence. The ultimate goal of all authentic spirituality is the return to oneself. When you silence the noise of others' expectations, you can finally hear the voice of your own integrity. This is not a path of isolation, but of a deep humanity, where you learn to inhabit the world without losing who you are. By integrating your personal truth, clarity in relationships transforms your journey. You stop being an exile in another's desire to become the master of your own peace. And what if the pain that confuses you today is actually a language of your soul trying to guide you back home? Remember, the universe listens to you when you learn to listen to yourself. We have reached the moment to anchor all that we feel. Healing begins where you stop fighting reality and start embracing your own journey with kindness. I ask you, wherever you are, to take a deep and sincere breath now. Feel the air coming in and going out, like the movement of a river teaching effortless fluidity. While you breathe, observe honestly. Who or what has been obstructing your flow? Who has been preventing your blossoming? Do not judge, just observe with the light of your presence. Let this clarity be the seed of your new reality. And what if the courage to let go of what weighs you down is the portal to the life your soul has always sought? If these words touched something inside you, perhaps it is time to take one more step on this path of rediscovering your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story might be the mirror someone else needed to find. If you seek a safe harbor, know that our community is the sanctuary where fertile silence is shared and deepened. Enjoy the posts on the channel, and to continue expanding this field of presence, we suggest the video pinned in the card. May it be a source of inspiration on your journey. Peace and light.